This is the real hell. Countless souls lined up in a long line. They recite a number with every step they take. Keira came here through her family's cellar and never made it out. Keira's family bought the old house a few days ago. The first night they moved in, Keira and her husband were working late, so the two kids stayed home. A strong wind suddenly blew out of the cellar door. Then the electricity in the house went out one by one. Soon the whole house was plunged into darkness. Ellie lights a candle and calls Keira. She told Ellie that the electric switch was in the cellar. Ellie was afraid to go down there for fear of the dark. Keira said there were only 10 stairs in the cellar. You take one step and I'll count them with you. I'll count until you open the electric switch. Ellie looked at the eerie staircase. She gathered her courage and went down. As she walked, she counted. Just as Keira thought she was about to turn on the electric switch.
11, 12, 13. 14.
Keira realized something was wrong and drove home immediately. But when her husband turned on the switch, he found the cellar empty. Her daughter was gone. So Keira immediately called the police. The police did a detailed search of the backwoods, but they still couldn't find Ellie. Her husband reassured her that maybe Ellie had run away from home. After all, she was in a rebellious phase, but Keira's instincts told her it couldn't be that simple. There are strange symbols carved into the doors of every room in the house. The same thing on the cellar stairs. There's some kind of mysterious formula at the bottom of the stairs. What's even more frightening is that Keira shines an ultraviolet light on the walls of the cellar. She found ghostly images all over the walls. She took a picture of the symbols on the door and got her friend to help her look it up. The friend then told Keira that it was Sibylline, which translates to Leviathan. And Leviathan is some kind of giant serpent sea monster in Jewish mythology. Keira wonders what this sea monster has to do with their house. And as she was confused, she turns on an old record player left by the previous owner in the house. On the other side, her son Stephen, who was playing a game, didn't notice. The beads of the abacus behind him start to slide. The door slowly opens. A horrible sound rings out of the darkness. The record player started to count. Stephen also counted with it. Then he stood up and slowly walked towards the bottom of the closet. Will he disappear into the darkness like Ellie? This basement was the entrance to hell. Stephen seemed to be under a spell. As he counted, he walked towards the closet, but Keira appeared in time to stop him. A gust of wind blew out of the basement late at night. It blew out the lamp in Keira's room. Stephen's cries for help came from the cellar. Keira rushed over to him, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open the door. She bends down and looks through the keyhole. Stephen suddenly appeared behind her. Keira rushed over to Stephen and hugged him. However, the cellar door was slowly opened. Keira went in curiously. Mother and son could not open the door no matter how hard they tried. Keira also clearly felt that there was something terrible in the cellar. Stephen was too weak to open the door. Her husband arrived in time to open the door and save Keira in the nick of time. Keira never wanted to live here again, but Brian thinks she's too anxious about her daughter's disappearance. You'll be fine if you get some rest. To ease Keira's worries, Brian went deep into the cellar. He found Keira's hair in there. A shadow flashed. The next day Keira finds a physics professor and shows him the formula on the stairs. The professor said that the previous owner was a very good physicist, but since his son died of a serious illness, he had given up physics and turned to theology. A colleague of the professor also found the formula in his house. Soon after, the family mysteriously disappeared. When he got home, Keira was still studying the patterns in the house. Brian was angry when he saw it. He took a hammer to the cellar stairs and smashed it. Then the record player runs automatically. The cabinet door behind Stephen opened again. This time he saw his sister, who had been missing for a long time. By now Ellie's clothes were in tatters. Her pale face was marked with strange symbols. Brian rushed to find only Ellie's cell phone. At that time Ellie was missing with her cell phone. Brian also finally realized the seriousness of the situation when he studied the symbols. He found if the figures on the door were put together, they would form a mysterious pentagram pattern. Then he found the object based on the pattern and the Hebrew words. Legend has it that the demon Baphomet is the gatekeeper of the gates of hell, and his hand gestures were exactly the same as those in the portrait of the former owner of the house. And that's when Stephen's drone flew into the basement uncontrollably. Stephen followed it in. Keira also turned on the record player and started counting. Stephen in the cellar also inexplicably counted along with. A gust of wind blew from the cellar and extinguished all the lights. The couple heard Stephen's screams and rushed to the cellar, but it was already too late. Stephen also disappeared strangely. Don't count the steps when you go downstairs at night, otherwise you'll disappear just like this boy. The parents searched every room, but Stephen was nowhere to be found. Just when they were at a loss for words, a small ball jumped down from upstairs. The two men followed the ball and found Stephen, who was missing. The husband took Stephen to the bed. Keira lifted his shirt and saw the familiar pattern on his chest. Stephen's mouth showed a strange smile. He looked like he was possessed by the devil. At that moment, her husband started to count as well. Keira hurriedly closed the door to the basement.
10, 9.
Her husband started counting again. As the sound of heavy footsteps came from far and near, Keira turned off her flashlight and hid in the dark. The footsteps faded away. Keira cautiously gets up. In a panic, she dives into the cellar. Behind her, there is another horrible hissing sound. Without hesitation, Keira runs down the steps. At the end of the cellar is a long tunnel. Through the tunnel she came to hell. The long line was endless. They were all counting in their own language. Every time they took a step, they recited a number. It looked like she was dead. Keira collapses to the ground in despair. Suddenly she saw a familiar tattoo. It was her daughter's tattoo on her ankle. Keira went up to check it out. It was her daughter Ellie. Keira was so excited that she grabbed her and ran outside. Soon the two crossed the threshold. Keira and her daughter crossed the stairs and raced out of the cellar. They locked the door securely behind them. By now Brian and Stephen had regained their senses.
Mom.
But Keira suddenly sees the flashlight she lost in the cellar.